Okay, so we are going to define what a strength-based approach is. We're going to explain the principles of the strength-based approach. We're going to identify the advantages and the disadvantages of this approach. We'll explore some tools and techniques that can be used in a strength-based approach, including asset mapping. We're going to examine the resources in our local communities that can support the strength-based approach, and we will describe how it can be embedded within your organisation. And so we're going to start by looking at the theory at the beginning, and then we'll go on to look at the tools and techniques towards the end and how it can be used. Okay, so starting with what's strong and not what's wrong. Essentially, this phrase, it just sums up the whole approach. So a strength-based approach, it is a social work practice theory that emphasises people's determination and strengths. It is a philosophy and a way of viewing a client as a resource and resilient in the face of adversity. It's client-led with a focus on future outcomes and strengths that bring people to a problem or a crisis. When applied beyond the field of social work, strength-based practice is also referred as a strength-based approach. And this was McCash and Wayne in 2005, and that's how he summed it up. So it's not just about professionals fixing an individual, but it's about everyone, including family, friends, as well as communities. So as I mentioned, it is a care. It does come from the care background to start with. So just want to show you this video. It kind of explains the strength-based approach from its setting in care. And it's about linking everyone together and showing how partners can contribute to this approach. But you'll need to work out how to fit it into your setting. But as we go through the training, hopefully that will become more clear. And as I said, I'm going to share some tools with you. So let's have a look at this video.
The main aim of the Care Act 2014 is to promote people's well-being and independence. The assessment process aims to put people at the centre of understanding their needs and how they can achieve their goals. At the heart of this change is the focus on a strengths-based approach, or what some people call an asset-based approach. This is nothing new. It's a core principle of social care. Both research and practice show that a crucial dimension of well-being is the ability and opportunity to benefit from and contribute to one's own community. This involves everybody, from people using services to their carers and friends, and the practitioners supporting them, to understand what this approach means and how it supports assessment and eligibility. What exactly is meant by a strengths-based approach? Put simply, it takes the glass half full perspective rather than the glass half empty one. It is a fundamental shift from a focus on what people can't do to focusing on the skills, abilities and experiences that people already have and those they wish to acquire or develop. Until now, assessments have usually measured people's needs created by ill health and disability and then allocated public sector resources to meet these needs. To ensure the continuing health and well-being as a nation, it's important to invest in people to help prevent, reduce or delay the development of needs. The Care Act requires the consideration of the outcomes people want to achieve. Through the assessment, people can be supported to realise what they can do and how best to use their skills and networks to achieve their outcomes. This approaches support differently, because the person is at the centre of how their needs are met and is enabled to benefit from their community and to be as involved as they can or want to be.
Okay, so the strength-based approach. It's a holistic and multidisciplined. It's centre, as it said, around the idea that the client's the agent of change. So it's collaborative, it's highly dependent on how individuals process their thoughts and emotions, and it allows for open communication, encouraging individuals to identify, value their strengths and their capabilities. It's proportionate to the situation. It's appropriate to the individual circumstances, so therefore it's flexible. It's a focus on what matters to you or what is your strengths. It identifies personal, family, community strengths and supports an individual to linking in with them. It's supporting the community, and it's useful for any interventions, settings, types, levels, or need of profession. So it examines not only the individual, but how they also fit into their environment. For example, how systems are set up, power imbalances between systems and services, and the people that's supposed to serve them. In addition, it identifies the constraints that might be holding back an individual's growth. And these constraints can sometimes be social, sometimes they're personal, but they can also be cultural issues. So interventions become holistic and centred-based, personal-centred based and outcome-focused, with the key elements for the strength-based approach will result in better outcomes and lives for individuals. As individuals, we have multiple skills, knowledges, talents, and characteristics and traits, and relationships and abilities. We're not just an individual on your own. So as you can see from this circle, that you've got the person's life, how they'd like to be, not necessarily how they are at the moment, but how they'd like to be. So we need to look at how we can support to improve that, but what impact on the quality of their life, etc. So we should consider all of these rather than a one-size-fits-all based on a catch-all, such as labels such as disability or dementia or just even simply old. So what isn't it? Okay, it's not an outcome. It's not the end. It's a part of, it's a process, it's a journey. It's not about signposting and providing less. And it's not about not helping. It's not about moving the focus onto somebody else. It's not about what's the matter with you and what is wrong. It's not about shifting the responsibilities to carers. It's about helping and getting carers involved, but it's not about shifting all the responsibility onto them. It's not a one size fits all. As I said before, not everyone is going to enjoy it. Not everyone's going to be able to buy into it. And it's not a way of avoiding talking about the problems or issues, although you're basing focusing on the strengths, you shouldn't be ignoring the weaknesses or the issues. So the principles of the approach is, there's 9 of them from Hammond in 2010, and he built on the original 6 that RAP came up with in 1993. So Hammond's principles are: everyone's unique, so everyone possesses a uniqueness that helps them to evolve and move along their journey. And these characteristics can be potential strengths and capabilities. So it's what the person can do. It is focusing on what the client strives for and eventually becomes a reality, but it has to be a realistic strive. We need to be careful of our language and the language we use, and to make sure that we don't give false hope, and that we create a reality as well. It's about accepting change. We need to realise that our lives and worlds evolving, so about not having resistance to that. You will see relationships get deeper and more meaningful as people learn to support each other. But remember, the client is the storyteller. That's their own story. They're the experts in their lives. And it's building on what you know and the experiences to dream of a better future. There's capacity building has multifacets and organisations, and we need to be flexible. This includes the community as well. And as I said, it's collaborative. It's about all different people coming together to support a person. So how does this work in the real life? So while I was preparing this course, a colleague mentioned to me that she had to help a lady who'd had a stroke and had young children. And one of the effects of the stroke was that she was unable to talk without pausing or taking a breath or catching up. Her speech was really badly affected. And so she was really struggling to read a bedtime story to her children. So my colleague worked with her over a period of time, and she read the book, The Hungry Caterpillar, and my colleague recorded it. Obviously, because she'd had a stroke and she was struggling to read and speak, it took a period of time to record the book. But then they edited the story so that it was easier and there was more of a flow. And the outcome was, at the end, the client was able to take the recording and with the book sit with her children in the evening and read the book to them using the recording to help her. So the advantages are you're focusing on strengths and not problems that offer the client, that control the client, and providing a new mindset to them. The client's being viewed positively, so tactics and client-driven, relationship minded. The client, as I said, is seen as the expert. They know their life, they know their strengths, they know what they can do, they know what they can't do, they know their limitations. The client learns how to set goals and expectations and cope with a healthier way that fosters growth and confronts rather than avoids challenges. And they become empowered by this, gives them courage to carry on. But the focus is on the first step to change and taking one step at a time. So resilience is the goal, and it offers the client a theoretical map to follow for prevention and evaluation. But we need to be aware of some things. As I said, it's not a one thing fits all, and sometimes, you know, there are things that we need to be aware of. So sometimes people have an inflated sense of their competence. They think they can do more than they actually can do. So we have to be careful, because obviously this can set individuals up for disappointment, making them believe they can do anything, and this makes them form a failure, and then it can be a setback and them not wanting to move forward again. Weaknesses are poorly managed, disregarded or unchecked. We need to not neglect the weaknesses. We can't ignore them. They're still there, but it's about identifying the strengths and supporting the strengths, but not ignoring the weaknesses. The client needs to understand the reasoning for doing it, why we're doing it, and so that they get on board and they can approach it. So the experts are shifting the problem where the client becomes the expert. So yeah, we need to approach, if it approach it badly defined, it can cause problems. And as I said, there can be social and cultural reasons why it doesn't work. So it only focuses on a Western view of strengths, and it doesn't take into account other cultures and perspectives. So we need to reconsider maybe what a strength is within a culture. So the idea of highlighting these points is if you're aware of them, then you can ensure that you're not avoiding them or mitigate them. Okay, so I said we might visit Josh later, but I want you to meet Bob. So I'm just going to share Bob's story with you.
Often we see people as a service user or a client that needs support. Meet Bob. Things that have been said and recorded about Bob by the staff that support him are: he's frail, has possible onset of dementia and is getting very confused. Struggles to mobilise, needs support with personal care as he's sometimes incontinent. Forgets to change his clothes, can be verbally challenging, hard of hearing. Although these terms...
Sorry, it's not showing properly. I hope you can all see it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not really appearing on my screen properly.
No, it's good on mine.
Is it? Okay,
yeah.
Let me start it again. Okay.
Describe some of the things Bob may find difficult. They don't really describe Bob the person. Bob can also be described as a husband, a father, a grandfather, an uncle. A highly skilled engineer who used to make engines for Concorde. A clever man who once appeared on Mastermind. A lifelong Notts County supporter. A scorer at his local cricket club. A gardener who had an allotment for 20 years and was well known for growing veg in the village. A great storyteller. A regular at the Fox and Crown pub. If we begin by looking at these strengths, interests, qualities and connections, we start to think about how we can use these to support Bob in a way that maintains his independence, builds on what he's able to do for himself, and most importantly, provides support that makes sense and works for him. Take a minute to think about someone you support. Who do you see?
This video reminded me of a television program that I'd seen recently. Okay, so the story of Bob reminded me of a television program. So Jay, who's off the repair shop, has set up another television program where he works with professional wood furniture makers and people that do designs and things, and he was working with 3 of them, and they each had 2 people who were interested in woodwork but wanted more experience. And as the program was going on, they were each given a commission to make something as a team for a deserving person. So they made them for a school, for people who worked in charities, and all sorts of different reasons different people were given. But one of the people that was helping, he'd started with dementia, and his wife had found that he was becoming isolated, but she'd put him forward for this. So he was working with a younger girl, and the furniture maker was a woman, and they were designing things. But he was actually able, because he'd worked with wood for quite a long time as an amateur, he was able to use those skills, and because he was helping him and he was doing this thing, it was warding off the dementia a bit, and it was holding it back from him. So that kind of reminded me of the story of Bob, because he was using his strengths rather than focusing on, I've got dementia, it's all doom and gloom. He was able to carry on and look to the future in a way.
Yeah, hi everybody. Sorry I came in late.
That's okay.
Sue, I love that. I think the camera's not working. I love that video, and I realised that when the person was just the cartoon person was all black and they were frail and they needed that they weren't looking after themselves, etc., etc. I thought, oh, that's what I and all my colleagues do. We work in community living with the over 55s and to help them sustain their tenancies. And often they're very, many of them are very vulnerable adults. And yes, that's the tick box. Need this, need that, that's no good, help them with some adaptations there, fix this, that's bad, that's wrong. And I love the simplicity of that little YouTube, and I think I'm going to hunt it out myself and pass it to all my colleagues just as a little reminder of how we
I mentioned at the very beginning, just before you joined us, that you will get the slides.
We all do it. We all do it. We all see the
negatives
instead of the positives.
So if you click on Bob's name, it will take you to it when you get the slides.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can please do share that video, because I do like it. I think it's lovely, and like you say, it kind of shows what we all do, focusing on the negatives. Okay, so the next bit then is how do we not do that, basically? So this is what we should do. This is the strength-based approach. This is how we can put it into practice. So we need to start with a conversation, because we need to find out about the person, but it doesn't need to be a formal conversation. It can be an informal conversation, so that we can ask them questions and find information out about them. We then would build a strengths map. So from that formal conversation, we'll identify their strengths and their goals and what they want to achieve, so that we can then produce an action plan and build on that, and then reflect on the action plan, because we may have to make changes and adjust it as times and things change. So it could be that if it's someone with dementia, that they don't achieve their goal before they suffer a setback or something. So yeah, just how we do it. Okay, so informal conversations. This is something that we do every day, isn't it? We're always having an informal conversation. So we always asking people questions to find out about themselves. You know, we're all stood around the coffee pot having a conversation. So, but some of the questions we can ask, so we can find out what's important to people. So we can ask things like, what are you most proud of in your life? What achievements have you made? What did you make them? How did you make them happy? What inspires you? What do you like doing? What makes you enjoyable? And what do you find comes easy to you? And how do you learn most easily? So from that, we can find out what people's strengths are and what their talents are, and what works and what doesn't work. Because people have tried things over the years and they know what they can and can't do. So I know I can't sing. I'm never going to be an opera singer. Singing is not my strength. And we know what they'd like to achieve and what they want. So just as a little bit of an opener, what would you all want to share with me, the one thing that you are most proud of?
Learning to ride a motorbike at 60.
Oh, wow.
Overcoming a fear.
Yeah.
More the essence.
How independent I am.
Excellent. Yeah. And I think that's probably the same as Anna's. So you're going to be independent if you're on a motorbike. Bit of freedom and independence there. Yeah. Anybody else?
Getting onto the uni course to do the apprenticeship.
Wow. Yeah. Something to be proud of. Yeah.
For me, it was giving up smoking.
Well done. Had you smoked for a long time?
Yes, about 30 years.
Yeah. So it was a big step.
Mm. best step I've ever done. Yeah, best thing I've ever done.
Anybody else?
I had well, I was struggling to lose weight, so I literally just flew to Turkey by myself and had a gastric sleeve, and that was a big thing for me. It's like,
Yeah, just going on your own abroad can be a big step anyway, can't it?
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, so when we ask questions, we're thinking about how we ask them. So we can start with, you know, a little bit of chit chat. How are you feeling? Do you feel good today? How are you feeling today? What does a good day look like for you? Or what makes it a good day? Who's important to you? Who do you trust? And what you enjoy and what your interests are. So these are all open questions. So we're asking open questions that people give us answers rather than just yes or no. So we can get a feel of people. I will drop you a handout. And in fact, my next page says handouts. I've got a couple of handouts which I will send to you, which have got some questions on. So if you know, when you're first struggling, you think, oh, I've got to ask a question, what do I ask? There are a couple of prompts and some ideas on it. So we need to remember that the questions need to be open questions. So an open questions where you get a sentence given to you as an answer rather than just yes or no. If you're asking a question that can be answered yes or no, you're just getting, it's a closed question and you're not getting any information really. We need to be careful not to use complicated language or jargon to make sure people are comfortable with the language that we're using and that they're understanding what we're asking. But also we need to give people time to think about their answers. So some of the questions on what is a good day, sometimes that might take a while for someone to think about it, especially if they've been in pain for a while. They might, you know, I don't know, every day at the moment's not a good day. So I'm not quite sure what a good day would look like. So yeah, we need to give them time to think about it. So just again, a couple of questions that help us. So things I'd like to do, or people I need around me, or things I'm good at even, or what, oh, we've gone too far, sorry. Or what would be good to me. Well, so I've got this little scenario that we're going to have a look at. You should have all received it. And this target is a strengths map. So we've got in the center, we've got the person. So they're the strengths that person has. And then the green bit, that's, oh, sorry, forgot to check that I'm saying the colors and then realised that if anyone's colourblind, you might not be able to distinguish between the blue and the green. Apologies. So the middle bit is the social network, so your immediate friends and family, and then the blue bit is your community and the wider area. Okay. So do you all know how to use the annotate button? So if you look on your screen, there should be like a little pencil. And if you click on it, you've got two options. You can use the pen to draw, like your mouse, or you can click on text and then type things in. Don't worry if you can't find it. If you drop your answers in the chat box and I'll try and type them in. Okay, so you should have all had a scenario and I'll just read it out briefly anyway, but there is a kind of like a précis of it there about Mr. R. So Mr. R's in his late 60s, living alone since the death of his wife. Mr. and Mrs. R had been married since they were both 18. Mr. R previously worked as an engineer in the aerospace industry, but took relative early retirement at 60 due to the severity of rheumatoid arthritis, which he had diagnosed quite young. Mr. and Mrs. R had a small circle of friends, but no significant relatives. Mr. R is shy and awkward in social situations. Most of his relationships were from his workplace and did not extend beyond work. He's got a son and a daughter who live abroad, or the other one lives 300 miles from the family home. They both enjoy a good relationship with their father, but because of the distance, they're infrequent with their visits, but they're loving and fulfilling when they do occur. So following his wife's death 18 months ago, Mr. R has become increasingly depressed and isolated, and he's rarely leaving the home. He's having little social contact with his friends. He's been neglecting his personal hygiene, and his home's becoming increasingly messy. He's got unwashed plates, spoilt food in the kitchen, and he's not eating properly, and largely feels there's no point of doing anything anymore. He's not taking his pain medication regularly and is experiencing increased lack of mobility due to his arthritis. His only daily social interaction is with his neighbour, Mrs. S, who has been friends with Mr. and Mrs. R for 30 years. She pops in regularly throughout the day to check on Mr. R, but extends the help limited extent to the help because she doesn't want to intrude and recognises his very private nature. She doesn't feel comfortable offering him personal care. She regularly talks to his children to update them on their father's condition. Mrs. S is fit and capable, being some years younger, and would like to provide more support to Mr. R around the home, but doesn't know how to begin that conversation without offending him. So in the past, Mr. R helped at local Scouts and Guides and volunteered in his children's school when he had shift patterns allowed. This allowed him to have a close relationship with his children, and it helps him to overcome his shyness. And he was acting in what he saw as some form of official capability. So using the annotate, what I'd like you to do is put in what you think the strengths that we have in this story. So what are Mr. R's strengths? What are the social and informal network strengths, and what are the community resources that we could call on to help Mr. R?
Sorry, where are we writing that?
So the Mr. R's strengths, his personal ones, will be in the centre circle. Okay. And then the social informal network in the middle circle, not the centre one, the middle of the three, and the blue circle, the outer circle, that will be what community resources are available to us that could help him, that he would be interested in. Yeah, I think the neighbour probably should be more in the, not in the yellowy bit, but in the green bit. But yeah, definitely got his neighbour. She focuses quite a bit in the story, and she's definitely a good person that could help. Right, okay, so the whole script, Donna, you should have had sent to you at the beginning, but I've just put a breakdown of it on the side of the slide there. So, yeah. Yep, so the son and the daughter, although they're not visiting regularly, they would be the social and informal network. So they wouldn't be in the blue, they would be in the green, but you possibly started writing that in the green, and it's gone into the blue.
Yeah, it was meant to be in the green.
Yeah, once you start writing it doesn't let you move it either. I know it's a bit of a pain. So if you're not sure, if you think you've identified and you want me to put it in and you're struggling to do it with the annotate, if you pop it in the chat, I can add it in for you.
I thought the helped at local Scouts, Guides and local school should go in the centre as his personal resource.
Yeah, it's a community one. It's a community one. So yeah. Resource. Yeah, because it's not his, it's not personal to him, it's not a skill he has, it's a community group, isn't it, that he can access to share his skills with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So is his skill then, which is personal, is that he's an engineer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Yep, good, thanks.
Okay. So yeah, perhaps need to pick another colour, don't I? So it stands out a bit better. Yeah, so the fact that he's an engineer, that's his skill, that he, and I've just written over the top of someone, I apologise. Does it say widower under there? Sorry. Or does it say engineer as well?
Just volunteer.
Volunteer. Yeah, so I think that is a skill, isn't it? It's something that he's done. He's volunteered. So if he's done it once before, potentially he might be happy to do that again. So yeah, happy to do that. So yeah, that would be a skill or a resource that he's got. So can we think of any more just before we move on? I think it also mentions the schools, isn't it? So it could be that he could go into the schools to read or something like that. It would depend on the schools. Same with the scouts and the guides about checks and not leaving him alone with the children. Okay, thank you everyone. That's really good. Unfortunately, I have to clear all your hard work due to the fact it will appear on every slide otherwise, so apologies. But let's just check. And turn off the annotate. Yeah, well, we'll need to clear it. Okay, so do you all know what a SMART target is? Because the first time I did this, I've worked in education for a long time and I just assumed everyone knew what SMART targets were. Having spent a lifetime being told all my targets needed to be SMART, I just assumed everyone knows what a SMART target is. Are you all aware of SMART targets? Is there anyone who's not aware of a SMART target? I'm going to quickly go over it anyway. Okay. So I will send out, in fact, share the handouts. So this is the handout on the questions that I will ask. But this is the SMART target one. So this will help you. It's got a couple of questions there and to support, to help in them. So a SMART target, you pick a goal. So for instance, a goal I might want to pick is I want to watch less TV and read more. Okay, so to make it SMART, I would need to kind of make it a bit like, how can I prove that? How can I evidence that I've read more or watched more? So I could make it a bit smarter by saying, I'm going to read a book every month, at least one book every month I'm going to read, and I will do it when I normally watch TV. So instead of watching TV, I'm going to turn the television off, or I'm going to move to another room and I'm going to read a book. So I can measure this, because after a month, if I've not even started a book, I know I haven't achieved it, have I? So I can tell that I've done that. It is achievable. It depends on what book I read. If I read War and Peace, I might not be able to read it in a month. I might have to pick a smaller book to start with, but it is measurable, it is achievable, I can do it. Is it relevant? Well, yeah, it's relevant to what I wanted to do. I wanted to read more. And so picking my target of I'm going to read a book a month is relevant. And is it time bound? Yes, because I can say at the end of the month, I haven't picked a book up. I haven't started a book. Or I could give myself 6 months and to check that I'm doing it and not just like stop after a month and go, well, I read a book for a month. If I give myself 6 months, have I read 6 books? Yes, I have, or no, I haven't. Now, I'm going to confess, because I know there is someone on here from Everyone Matters, that I actually attended an Everyone Matters course, and they spoke about SMART targets, which I was totally aware of, but they actually made them smarter by putting evaluation and revisit in there, which I think is really good. So I have stolen that from you. Apologies, Zoe. Okay, so with the E and the R, you're looking at the goal and checking it and evaluating it. And it's possible that I had picked War and Peace, and it did take me longer than a month to read. So I've actually, if I'm going to read big, thick books, that maybe I should pick one book every 2 months, or maybe I should change my goal and pick a smaller book and not such a big, intense book. So then I can revisit and make changes to it, evaluate it and revisit. So once we've got our goal, we've had our conversation, we've got our goal, we've built an action plan, we can then look at the assets that we've got in the community to support with the action plan, to see if there are things around us. So, and then this is called asset mapping. So I've just got this little video which will show you what asset mapping is. It kind of explains it better. So sorry, Mr. Grammarly's going to be there until I can get rid of him.
Grammarly has again been a lifesaver with my application.
Okay.
When I first heard the term asset map, I was confused. What does it mean?
Oh, sorry.
What do they mean by assets? But there's no need to be confused. An asset map is simply a way to identify and recognise the assets, resources, gifts, talents, skills and knowledge in our local communities. It includes the gifts of people, community groups, organisations, physical structures, businesses and the culture of the area. Every community is rich in resources and assets, but sometimes we don't realise the wealth we have around us. So how does asset mapping really work? Every time we get together with friends, family and neighbours, we are already mapping the gifts other people have. There might be someone who can help fix a problem with your car or lawnmower. Another person who knows about paving or gardening. Someone who has a great recipe and is willing to share it. A cook who always brings something fantastic to eat. Another person might be a musician and can entertain. There will be people with different cultural backgrounds and someone who knows a lot about the history of the area. So many resources, so many assets. Usually we map these things in our minds. With asset mapping, we formalise this process and move it to a physical format. The beauty of asset mapping is that it isn't hard. An easy place to start is with a small group of friends and neighbours. A good exercise to help with this is the gift of the head, heart and hands. First, ask people to list the things they know a lot about. That's the head. Then the things they are passionate about or care a lot about, the heart. And finally, the things they can do, the hands. Once you have this list, you have started a map of the assets of the group. It isn't hard. But without linking these assets together and putting them into action, all you'll have is a list or a directory. The real power of the map is when these assets and resources are put into action. You can do this in many ways. People could list the things they would like to learn. They can then be linked to someone who could show them or teach them. Others might find a common interest such as cooking or gardening or conservation. They could create a cooking group or put together a book of recipes, or start a community garden, conservation group or park cleanup group. Already the assets are becoming linked and mobilised for action. You can also map other things. You will find people in the group are involved in other local activities. Some might belong to a local neighbourhood watch group or a service club or a church. These are all assets and can be mapped. You will be surprised at how many community groups have links in your community. There will be people involved with organisations providing a service to the community. This could be a disability organisation or funded service provider, or police, local council or other service. These all add value to your community and can be mapped. There will be local businesses people use. The local supermarket, bank, butcher, fruit shop, takeaway, coffee shop. There are so many in our communities. These can all be mapped. Then there are the physical structures, the parks, gardens, libraries, community centres, walking tracks. They are all resources and assets to be mapped. Don't forget the local cultures and stories. These are all part of the community of where we have come from and who we are. Recording these adds to our understanding of our community. You can map in many ways. You could keep a simple inventory or a visual map. It doesn't matter what the format is. All that matters is that you've now listed the assets and resources of your community. Your challenge is then to make the connections between these amazing assets and activate them to work for the community.
Sorry, it's quite faint when he's talking, so I hope you could all pick up. But a couple of things that made me think about and reminded me of things that had happened that had kind of built from that. So a friend of mine's mum had started with dementia around the same time as her son was thinking about going off to university. So what she got her mum to do was to write a book of all the recipes. So just in a notebook, all the family recipes that they'd enjoyed, she got mum to write those down and record them. And then when her son went off to university, he went off with a cookery book of recipes that he'd enjoyed over the years that he liked. And then it also reminded me of the film 1917, which Sam Mendes created and directed. He'd got the idea from a story that his grandfather had told him about the First World War. His grandfather had been telling him all these stories that had happened during the First World War, and he used one of those stories to create the film 1917. I don't know if any of you've seen it, but I would recommend it. It's a lovely story about two men. Okay. It is a sad story as well, if you've not seen it, by the way. Okay, so what can we do? So we examine the resources in our area, and then we can create a map. So we think about the physical spaces, the parks, the playgrounds, the paths. We think about businesses, and they can be private businesses or public businesses. Think about the stories that the community have. Establishments, so the schools, the libraries, the hospitals, the museums, the groups that people access, charity groups and fitness groups and things like that, but also the individuals we have. So again, I've got a picture where you could map it like this. So this is a skills map community. And you can see it's very busy. There's lots of things going on there. There's volunteers that manage a CAF. There's a trained actor. There's someone who runs a car club. There's someone who looks after the cemetery. There's someone who coaches people to play football. There's someone who looks after their grandchildren. Someone who's good at catching and cooking and eating fish. So there's lots of people in our communities that we can access, that we can go to. Okay, it doesn't have to be as busy as this, that we can map it in another way. And in fact, I have another resource that I will send to you, which is this one, it's an American resource. So some of the language is written in American, but it's, okay, it does the job. So the first pages tell you how to use it. So although I'm going to go over it really quickly, it does tell you how to use it. and it talks about the different ideas. So there are 6 areas. So we've got emergency services, social and cultural, local and state government, education, healthcare, and neighbourhood resources. It's to help you identify them. And then we go down and we have a spreadsheet. So I'm going to get you to help me fill in this spreadsheet. Now, we're not going to fill in the contact details and the website and the resource strength or what they're good for. We're just going to fill in what the organisation is or what the place is, just so we get a bit of an idea of how this resource works. Okay. So if we start with healthcare, and we're going to look at a wider area of the whole of Staffordshire, so you don't have to focus on your local area, but if it's something in your local area. So we're only focusing on Staffordshire just to make it easier, because you're probably coming from the whole of Staffordshire. But if you know that they've got something in Tamworth, and it would just tell me and we'll stick it in there. So we need 4 healthcare types of organised places that we could put into our asset map. What could they be?
Community hospital.
Yep.
GP surgery.
I apologise if I've spelt any of these wrongly, as I am looking quickly. Yeah. We got any others?
Healthcare.
What about like a community group that runs sort of a coffee morning or something like that?
Yeah, I would put those in the social and cultural.
Social and cultural. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Is that okay?
I mean, library would go under the social. That's a quick.
Yeah, or they might go under neighbourhood resources, libraries, or
health centres.
Yeah, health centres. Thank you. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what about education? What kind of education assets could we map that are in Staffordshire?
Nursery provision.
Yeah.
Colleges.
What about children's centres?
Yeah, I have to ask that question, are there still children's centres in Staffordshire? Because I know they closed some of them.
What about like adult community provisions?
Yeah, ALC, yeah. So that's, so I've done it wrong, ACL, isn't it? Adult and Community Learning. Yeah, and we've also got the University of Staffordshire, haven't we? In fact, and we've also got Keele University, so we've got a couple of universities as well that do a lot within the community that you can access. Okay, what about social groups? So there's a bit of a thing with churches, yeah, and a lot of churches do more than just hold services, don't they? A lot of them have lunch clubs, and they have food banks in them and things like that. So the libraries, yeah, I think libraries would probably go in here as well. Yeah.
Places of worship.
Yes, it doesn't have to be churches, does it? It could be any place of worship. Yeah. Yeah.
Gym. Leisure centres.
Yeah, I think I might put those in a bit further down. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Warship. Sorry, apologies for my spelling. Okay, local and state government then. What kind of things can you think of in local and state government?
Would things like the space scheme come under that? You know what
Could
they're doing?
be. Yeah, could be.
And what about the like support schemes with regards to, you know, when they can do the free holiday clubs and lunches for kids that are like qualify eligibility, but I don't know what they're called, can't recall.
Yeah, I mean, basically, oh, sorry. Anything, it's like your district and your county council. Yeah. Because they quite often run events, don't they? And have things that event in places as well. So what about neighbourhood resources?
Food bank?
So the food bank would come under emergency resources,
Okay.
I think.
Oh yeah, it's there, food bank, I can see.
Yeah, it does say food banks, yeah, in there. So this is your community centres. This is places where you can go and meet, or could be parks or something like that.
Youth clubs.
Youth clubs, yeah.
Mother and baby groups.
Yeah.
Play groups.
Carers groups.
Yeah, yeah. So then we've got emergency resources. So we've got food banks.
Housing advice.
Yeah.
What about drug and alcohol type centres?
Very good. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to put drug link. I'm going to take the N out because I think that's what it used to be called in Stoke, drug link for drug and alcohol support. Okay, so as you can see, I filled that in, and once you've done one more localised to your area or the area that you're covering, you can find the contact details for those people. As you can see, it gives me a nice little printout, or I could just print this one page and it gives me some ideas of those places that we've put in. Apparently, and I've not tried it, but you should be able to then create a Google map, and it would map them onto Google Maps if you put the actual addresses in. So you could then share that information or find a localized area for someone specific. You could have that information with you on Google. And so this one was done for Austin in Texas. As I said, it is an American one, but I thought I haven't found a better resource because I think it's a really good way of doing that asset mapping and pulling it all together. Okay, but what happens if you have like used your brains and thought about everything and you're not sure where to go and get this information? So there are a couple of places where you can get it. So we've got the Staffordshire Connects website, we've got Staffordshire County Council website, and then you've got the community help points. So again, I'm going to share those pages with you so that I can show you them. So I can show you what's on them. So with the Staffordshire Connects page, the link that I've put on the slide takes you to this page. But as we're focusing on adults and not children or care workers or care leavers, we're clicking on the adult and community. Please bear with me because I'm moving everything around so that I can think. So, okay, we've got on here activities and clubs. You've got libraries, you've got living at home and other things. So if we click on the activities and clubs, you could look at luncheon clubs if you needed to. You can look at befriending schemes, leisure centres, faith-based groups, parks, community centres, but activities and clubs. So if one of your targets was to help somebody, I don't know, could be, let's pick a subject, shall we, off of our list. Someone who would be interested in photography. I know that's a bit too, there's only one of those. Let's go for gardening and conservation. So someone's told you they're interested in gardening and conservation. So there it was, I think it was 28 it said, but then we can break it down by the area. So I'm going to go for Stafford. And then you can see we've got Staffordshire Wildlife Trust, we've got Bishop's Offley Millennium Trust, and we've got Thrive, which help with gardening to change lives. So that it'll break it down, or so we can find out if there's things in our local area, because I'm not expecting you all to be experts and know the whole of the county off by heart where everything is. Okay, so there's advice there. And then the other one, I close that one down. The other one was the county council. So again, on the advice and support for carers, they have got help there as well. So helping with your life, and they've got information for providers, and support for carers. So it could be what support's available to me, etc. But on their health and well-being part of the page, you can see there's walks and trails, there's parks and picnic areas, there's keeping well. And on the community section, there's lots of information there. So both the council website, county council website, and Staffordshire Connects have got a wealth of information to help you with that asset mapping. And then obviously with the community points, they're quite often based in libraries. So they are places where you can get that information. Okay, so just to recap. So we have an informal conversation with someone, we have a chat with them, we find out their strengths, what they're interested in, what they would like from them. So we can build a strengths map, we can identify the personal strengths, what social resources they've got around them, if they've got family or close friends that can help them and support them. And then we also find out about the community, what's in the community. So we can then set goals and then from that build an action plan. But as I said, we need to reflect on any goals or action plan we build. We don't just set the goal, leave them alone and let them get on with it. We have to review it and make sure it's appropriate, because things may change along the way. So just wanted to go back to the video that I showed you at the beginning. And I just realised that I shut the video down, so I'm going to have to open it up again. So apologies, because I need to then So just bear with me a second while I set the video up, and I'll let you see about Josh and his life.
Meet Joshua.
Worker came round.
Okay, let me share this page with you.
Meet Joshua. He is 72 and lives by himself since his wife died 2 years ago.
When Sandra, my social worker, came round, we spoke about me feeling lonely. We also talked for ages about what I'd done in the past. I told her about my days working as a cook in the Merchant Navy, in the restaurant trade, and just how much I love being in the kitchen. On her next visit, she mentioned they were looking for somebody to help out in the canteen at the social club.
Here, the assessor and manager at the social club worked together to create an opportunity for Joshua to use his skills. Joshua is less isolated, and the social club has a new volunteer, so using the strengths and finding the opportunities in the existing community has worked. Under the Care Act, all...
Okay, so as I need just a quick introduction to Josh there, but as you can see, by using the strength base, they had the conversation with Josh. They found out what he was good at. So the negative things were he was feeling isolated and probably going through all the other things that we'd mentioned before with Mr. R, where he was feeling isolated and not looking after himself so well. But by finding his strengths and finding out that he was a cook, and then discovering in the community that there was an opportunity for him, marrying those two together, he's going out meeting people, and it's not he's not so isolated. So this is why it's the half full rather than the half empty. So you're looking at the positive side of things rather than the negative sides. Okay, this is my sales pitch. So if you've enjoyed our courses, we do offer other courses.